Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. As family and friends continue to mourn the death of a pregnant woman hit by a vehicle at a pedestrian crosswalk last week, members of the Regent Park community where she lived and was fatally struck gathered tonight to discuss ways to prevent a tragedy like this from happening again. As Nama Weingarten reports, a city councillor already has something in the works.
Regent Park community members are holding an emergency meeting right here Tuesday night to reflect and mourn on the loss of Bilkis Khanam and demand that the city do better to keep their intersection safe. The 42-year-old pregnant mother of 3 and her unborn child were killed after being struck by a car at a crosswalk at Queen and Stackville Streets. Police say she was heading westbound on Queen when a 70-year-old man struck her with his car Thursday evening. She's being remembered as a loving mother who always gave back to the community.
When we walk around the evening time, we saw her in the field, right, with kid and husband. Now we are missing. It's very heartbreaking for us.
She loved her kids. She encouraged her kids to give back to her community and to society. So she deeply cared about what happened here.
By the end of this meeting, they hope to come up with a list of recommendations for the city to prevent tragedies like this from happening again. Right now, the intersection has a pedestrian crossover. That's with overhead yellow lights and side-mounted flashers, not the same as a traffic signal.
If we don't come together as a community to ensure that our local government, our municipal government, acts on those recommendations, then we're inviting potential tragedies in the future.
And they're not the only ones demanding change. City Councillor Chris Moyes, who represents the area, says he's working on an emergency motion to put a stoplight at the intersection, among other changes. He says they walked through the area just days before the accident to determine which intersections needed new traffic lights. Queen and Sackville was one of them.
It was hard to hear and to learn that a few days later, on a Thursday, that one of our residents was struck and killed in the intersection. It was just heart-wrenching because I feel that, it was preventable.
Councillor Moyes plans to present his motion to the city on Thursday, but he says that even with this emergency motion, it could take months before the community will see any change. Nama Weingarten, CBC News, Toronto.
A man was rushed to hospital with serious injuries tonight after he was shot by a police officer in Cabbagetown. It happened near Carlton and Parliament just after 7. Police say the man was armed with a knife and an officer discharged their firearm. Police aren't releasing any more details as the Special Investigations Unit has invoked their mandate. The SIU is also trying to determine how a police cruiser collided with an ATV last night in North York. The ATV was being driven by a 13-year-old with a 12-year-old passenger on board. Greg Ross has more.
There are still a lot more questions than answers when it comes to this bizarre collision involving a Toronto police cruiser and an ATV. According to the SIU, Toronto police officers were in the area of Shepherd Avenue West and Laura Road at around 10:30 last night when they observed an ATV of interest. Somehow, a short time later, the cruiser that those officers were in hit that ATV and went up over it. It happened right here in this intersection at Shepherd Avenue West and Laura Road. The ATV, along with the 13-year-old who was driving it, became lodged under the police cruiser. According to the SIU, there was also a 12-year-old passenger on the ATV who fled the scene and was apprehended by police a short time later. Fire crews were called in to extract the 13-year-old from under the police cruiser. Both the 13-year-old and the 12-year-old were then taken to a hospital to be treated for minor injuries. The SIU invokes its mandate when police are involved in situations that result in death, serious injury, discharge of a firearm, or allegations of sexual assault. Because the SIU is now involved in this investigation, Toronto Police would not comment, but the president of the Toronto Police Association, John Reid, had this to say.
Officers were responding to a radio call in that area in regards to sound of gunshots in relation to an ATV. As a result, they commenced an investigation. During the course of that investigation, obviously there was some kind of a collision took place.
In a statement from the SIU, they did not confirm the reports of gunshots in this area last night. They also did not specify what prompted them to invoke their mandate. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto's police chief is warning about a troubling trend targeting some members of his force. He says assaults against parking enforcement officers have risen steadily in the last couple of years. Today, the police service, along with the union representing officers, held a news conference to bring awareness to the problem. Chris Glover has the details.
The dreaded parking ticket, frustrating to receive and increasingly dangerous to give out.
His front bumper hit me on the leg and he tried to peel away.
Parking enforcement officer Stephen Loader says a taxi driver drove into him while he was trying to issue a ticket.
It was an eye-opener. It was a little bit of waking you up to sometimes you take things for granted on the job, and it definitely puts things back in perspective that you have to be on your toes and aware of your surroundings at all times.
Stop assaulting our parking enforcement officers. And if you do, let me be clear, there will be very, very serious consequences.
The chief holding a press conference to remind everybody that even though parking enforcers are civilian members, assaulting them carries the same severe penalty as any police officer.
They do not deserve to be cursed at, pushed, punched, let alone have to jump out of the way of a moving vehicle.
A big part of the story here is the increase in violence against parking enforcement officers. There were 6 assaults in 2021. That number more than doubled to 15 the next year, and then 46 last year. And already this year, there have been 27 assaults against parking enforcement officers in Toronto.
Yeah, I understand and respect the fact that you got to pay for parking.
Perry Federico assumes, as the chief does, that the increase in violence is likely connected to a gridlocked city with fewer and fewer parking options. Why do you think people are getting so mad at parking enforcement officers that they're actually injuring them?
I have no idea.
It doesn't make sense to Renato Inoc either.
Without the traffic enforcer, oh my, Toronto we are in bad shape.
Noticing how vital parking enforcers are and the increasing risk they're exposed to, last year the chief introduced mandatory de-escalation training.
That is now a yearly thing that we very much focus on to ensure our members are equipped to the best of their abilities to cope with whatever confronts them, including aggressive people on the street.
It actually is satisfying that they're also concerned as well too, that they're actually making a public plea for this, right? I've never seen that before, and I'm proud to work under him right now just because he did that.
Supervisor Zishan Sheikh says he's been jumped on, sprayed with a beer can, and punched from behind, all while on the job. He says it means a lot to have a chief not just talk about the problem, but introduce a solution like annual training.
Think about it, like I'm on 19 years. I had my training back in 2005. That was the last time somebody's ever taught me how to de-escalate a situation, right? So 2005 to 2024, times are different now too, right? So it's a great initiative he started.
Part of the training to remind drivers, yes, it's frustrating to get a ticket, but illegal parking slows everybody down. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
18 people, including a 14-year-old, have been charged in a string of carjackings and home invasions in Peel Region. Police announced the results of their 6-month-long investigation this morning.
In total, 17 incidents in Peel Region, many of which have affected families. And just to be specific, the home invasions have involved individuals waking up to firearms being presented to them in their beds, children's at home being traumatized.
Peel police say they were able to link the incidents, laying a total of 150 charges. 8 robberies took place in Brampton between November and January, along with a series of carjackings across the GTA in March. The 18 accused are between the ages of 14 and 27. 12 stolen vehicles were recovered, and several firearms have also been seized. LCBO stores across the province reopened today after a historic weeks-long strike by its unionized workers. And many customers, along with local bar and restaurant owners, are breathing a sigh of relief. But as Ryan Patrick Jones reports, the blame game between the union and the province continues.
Some of the first customers returned to a downtown Toronto LCBO this morning.
I'm having a staff event at my house this afternoon, and I didn't have any wine, so now I do.
We literally just got cases and cases of everything that we need to batch cocktails, make some people happy. We do have happy hour at our restaurant, so we have a lot of work to do.
Around 10,000 LCBO workers walked off the job on July 5th after contract talks broke down, shutting hundreds of retail stores across the province. The two sides reached a deal over the weekend and workers returned to the job yesterday. At the Leaside pub, co-owner Param Ratna says he's relieved the strike is over as his liquor and wine supplies are dwindling.
I have almost 15 of them out. Yeah, like Glenlivet, Glenfiddle, Black Label, Red Label, regular vodka.
Ratna says the limited availability affected his business.
Last week, yes, the whole week been slow. I think I would say more than 20-30% down. People know they strike, they may not have all the liquor, they don't want to come out.
On top of running low on liquor and wine, some bar owners were frustrated with the LCBO's online ordering system and slow delivery times during the strike.
It wasn't straightforward, it wasn't smooth. I talked to a lot of friends who are in this industry. They all found it very difficult to use the website. It wasn't user-friendly. And most people just came up with alternate solutions.
The LCBO says it will take a few weeks to get back to normal as it rebuilds inventory and processes backlogged delivery orders, saying in a statement, "We were forced to make some fulfillment changes to the system during the strike, which may have impacted the experience of our licensees. We apologize for any inconvenience caused." One of the main issues of the strike was the Ontario government's plan to expand alcohol sales in grocery, big box, and convenience stores. The union said this would reduce LCBO revenue and lead to job losses. Despite the strike, the province is moving forward with its plan.
It's going to be a good thing, and it's going to be great for the people of Ontario. This strike should have never, ever happened.
The union shot back today with bargaining chair Colleen McLeod saying in a statement that the union made significant gains because of the strike. They include a commitment that no stores would close for the next 3 years and the conversion of around 1,000 casual employees to permanent part-time status. Ryan Patrick Jones.
Welcome back. It's been 1 week since Toronto was hit with major flooding across the city, and some residents are still feeling the effects. The Rockcliffe neighborhood in the city's West End is particularly flood-prone. Olivia Bowden spoke to some residents who are still assessing the damage and unsure about what to do next.
Like, you can see how high the water went up on the garage.
Brandon Price says nearly a meter of water poured into his garage last week. Adding Cordella Avenue looked more like a river.
Our entire street was flooded from basically an intersection over there to right around the bend over there.
On July 16th, Toronto saw close to 100 millimeters of rain. It caused widespread flooding and power outages for over 160,000 people. Price and his neighbors caught some of the worst of it. His street and the Rockcliffe neighborhood overall is notorious for flooding. The area is located west of Weston Road and north of Dundas Street West. Its proximity to Black Creek and being located on a floodplain has caused issues. And with the city estimating rainstorms will carry 30% more rainfall by 2080, the issue could get worse. Price rents the house with his wife and 2-year-old daughter and isn't sure what their next move is.
The neighborhood is nice, the people are nice, but I don't know. I don't know how long we can stay here if this is just a reoccurring thing.
He says baby toys, furniture, and collectibles were all ruined by the sewage-filled water, and insurance might not cover the full cost of the damage. Rockcliffe homeowners are eligible for a no-fault grant from the city for basement flooding. But Price says he's unsure how to work that out with his landlord, who never warned him about the floods.
Bunch of sewage and backup.
Just across the street, Daniel Corral is throwing out damaged property. He says he and his wife bought the house 6 months ago, and he had no idea about the flooding problem. He says applying for the no-fault grant doesn't seem straightforward.
It's frustrating as a homeowner, but also as, a father, a husband trying to make sure and take care of everything.
CBC Toronto spoke to the area's city councillor, Frances Nunziata. She says homeowners can apply for the no-fault grant by calling 311. She's also looking to expedite a flood mitigation project that should help. But climate experts say it's not happening fast enough. Engineering professor Usman T. Khan says Toronto needs to better protect neighborhoods like Rockcliffe, including implementing what's called sponge city techniques that reduce floodwater runoff.
I don't think the events of last week are unavoidable. I think we can do a lot better to try and reduce the severity of floods that we have in the city.
And while that's being determined, residents are left to continue their cleanup. Olivia Bowden, CBC News, Toronto.
Local governments and organizations across the province are thinking about how to better handle future flooding events. Today, the humanitarian group Global Medic demonstrated its new anti-flood barriers that it hopes will mitigate the next emergency. Brittany Billette takes a look.
This anti-flood barrier is military tested, and emergency crews are eager to learn how to use it.
I was impressed with how quickly it was deployed and how efficient it was versus having to fill sandbags and going one over and over again.
Teams gathered for a training session Tuesday in Mississauga, a flood simulation using water from a fire truck and Global Medic's new anti-flood barriers. It says it's only one of 2 certified by the United States Army Corps of Engineers, and they could be used in the next flooding event in Ontario.
If we can keep a town's electricity going, if we can keep clean water in the town going, the impact to civilians will be minimized and lives will be saved.
The long, flat rubber barriers can be laid out before a flooding event, and as the water starts to flow, it fills the barriers up and holds the water back. Global Medic says it can hold 4 times the amount of water demonstrated here, and the organization has 2 of them, bought through a provincial grant.
We keep them at the ready to lend out at any time, whether it's North Bay, Thunder Bay, Brantford, Whitby, whoever needs it, we'll lend it to them and deploy it with them.
In Mississauga, last week's record-breaking storm flooded roads and washed out trails. Crews were out on boats rescuing people in the water.
It's always important to have these conversations so that we know what equipment, what resources are available for the next time. We always talk about this 100-year flood. It doesn't mean it will happen every 100 years. It means you have a 1% chance of it happening in any given year.
Singh of Global Medic says governments and civilians can't afford to just report damage and try to clean up. That's why organizations like his are doing what they can to stay one step ahead of the next storm. Brittany Billette, CBC News, Mississauga.
Welcome back. The red carpet was rolled out in Toronto tonight for the gala premiere of the 3rd film in the Deadpool franchise, Deadpool and Wolverine. Hundreds of fans flocked to Scotiabank Theatre to get a glimpse of the film's stars, Vancouver native Ryan Reynolds and Aussie Hugh Jackman.
These two, they're 2 of the coolest characters. They're Canadian, so they're sexy. And what else? They're out, they march to the beat of their own drum, and they're not going to be pushed around by anybody. So,
They're both married to a moose.
Yes.
They're Canadian. They're Canadian characters. What an opportunity to have 2, hugely, I think, iconic superheroes enter the MCU and do it draped in maple syrup.
The film's director, Sean Levy, is also Canadian. Deadpool and Wolverine hits theaters this Friday. In Paris, where speculation is growing that Celine Dion will perform at the opening ceremony on Friday. CBC spotted Dion outside the Paris hotel where she's staying, and she's in the city with her son, René. Dion signed autographs, posed for selfies, and greeted people in the crowd. As she was asked if she was here for the Olympics, but gave no response. If Dion does perform, it won't be the first time. She also sang at the opening of the Atlanta Olympics in 1996. Lady Gaga has also been spotted in Paris, leading to even more speculation about Friday's big show. Chris Potter joining us now with a look at how the rest of our week is shaping up, and except for a few showers, things looking pretty good.
Yeah, we just have to kind of get through tomorrow if you're not a fan of active weather. It doesn't look like it's going to be a washout day tomorrow, Kelda. It just looks like we'll see maybe a few showers during the morning, primarily during the afternoon, some steadier rainfall potentially, maybe even a few embedded non-severe thunderstorms with some slightly heavier downpours locally, but this isn't all afternoon long. In terms of temperatures, they will fluctuate a little bit over the next couple of days, but overall we're going to average where we should be for this time of year. That magic number is around 27 degrees. Normal overnight low for this time period is around 15. Last night we dropped down towards 19, and through the afternoon we climbed back towards 28. But of course the humidity in the air made it feel a little bit higher. The GTA was dry today, but of course many areas to the north got into some pop-up showers, a few isolated slow-moving thunderstorms as well. But we do have another system moving in. It's going to be tracking across the upper Great Lakes, and this is where Environment Canada has a rainfall warning. It's just starting to move in right now. It will continue through the overnight into the day tomorrow, primarily during the morning. Looks like 40 to 60 millimeters of rainfall locally. Now, in terms of our forecast, like I suggested, out ahead of this advancing system, we've had these pop-up showers, some thunderstorms as well. But as they advance to the east, they are starting to die out. I'm not expecting that to be an issue across the GTA through the overnight. The system responsible will once again trail up through the upper Great Lakes. That's obviously where the track is, and that's where the steadiest rainfall will be. But after it departs, high pressure drops in from the north, and it's going to stick around for a number of days. In terms of your precipitation outlook, we'll start off with the overnight. Rainfall continues to clear off towards the north. What's left over from all this convective weather through the daytime will be gone. The system's rainfall then pushes in across the upper Great Lakes, and it will move through cottage country as well. Once we get into the afternoon, these showers will start to redevelop ahead of a cold front. It does look like it will be fairly quick moving, so I'm not anticipating significant rainfall across the GTA, but just be prepared for it. Slight risk of strong to severe thunderstorms over eastern Ontario as well through the late afternoon and early evening. Then we advance into Thursday. Everything looks good. We'll probably see some scattered cloud during the afternoon. There might still be a couple of drops of rain here and there, but you can see just how sparse it is. We're not expecting a rainy day on Thursday. Almost every single area will be dry. And dry weather doesn't just prevail across the GTA. Maybe you're heading up north for this weekend. It looks like a great weekend for it. And in fact, it's going to be a great weekend no matter where you go. No rainfall guaranteed across the region. And it looks like daytime highs will be at or near normal and maybe even above as we get into Sunday and Monday. In terms of the daytime highs tomorrow, mid-20s again for Thursday, Kelda. And once we get into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, like I mentioned, it's kind of a copy and paste forecast. The only thing that's going to change is the temperatures and the humidity. 30, your high for Sunday, feeling like 35.
Sunshine and lollipops, right?
Like I said before.
I'm down for it. Thanks so much, Chris.
You got it.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching.